flair for a dramatic or a visual effect. In other words, it's how he's brought forth to the people. It's something that people's going to keep an eye on that person entertaining the audience. It's the style which you may have to present as a showmanship. We think of showmanship as soon as we pick up a microphone in our hand. Well, showmanship starts way before that. It starts at home, when we pick up the phone to take a booking. Showmanship starts right there. It's how we respond to the person at the other end of the line. When we pick up a telephone with call waiting now that we have, you can pretty much see who's calling. Years ago, when the phone rang, you didn't have a clue, so you had to pick up the phone in the manner of, be happy. I always tell my kids, if you're having a bad day and the phone rings, don't answer it. Why make somebody else's day miserable? And that works with us as well. When we take bookings and someone calls up, well, you know what? I don't have time for you right now. I'm dealing with my kids. My daughter just got an F and da-da-da-da-da-da. So why don't you call back later and we'll deal with it then? Is that showmanship? Absolutely not. You got to be pleasant. So showmanship actually starts at home. It starts at home. If you go to the restaurant before the dance and you're eating with a bunch of dancers or callers, it starts there. Well, it's how you present yourself. It's the first image that people's going to see you. As you walk into the hall. Sometimes when we walk into the hall is not what we expect. They may not have a stage. They may not have a table set up. And it kind of sets for you to get kind of upset. Well, why is there a table? Why isn't there a stage? I didn't bring that big of an extension cord. It's all part of showmanship. And to be rude and so forth, that's the way the dancers are going to remember you by.
Your personal demeanor. Did I say that? Demeanor. Your personal demeanor, your dress. How you have to dress for that event. That's also a part of showmanship. And he's saying prior to the dance, you need to know what that event is and then dress accordingly. If it's a pool party, you don't need to be dressed in a tux. But the idea that you do need to dress the part is odd, but you can look across a floor in a room of dancers and you can almost pick the callers out of the room because how they appear, their appearance, their demeanor, their dress. They just have this air of confidence, and you can almost, like you say, I bet they're callers or they're leaders. And we come to find out they are. And that's what you need. You don't need to be somebody that's just in the woodwork or looking like you just came out of the garden. Okay? So be careful. And I feel strongly about that. I know there's a big movement out to, we need to just dress down and not push our activities code of uniform or dress, but I personally feel that we do, as leaders and callers, need to look the part. We have to dress for success. There's no need for me to come up here on the stage with holy jeans and a shirt half pulled out and say I'm going to go down present myself in a professional manner. And yet we've seen it, and those people are complaining. And oddly enough, some of them get hired. And we don't understand that either, but they do.
The scary part is they get hired back.
And they get hired back. So there's even before we pick up the microphone, there's a lot of things to think about. I mean, we could be having the best day, and we get into our car, and we're 10 miles from the dance. We have 20 minutes to get there, and we get a flat tire. They're done. In a white suit, and that changes. Let me tell you, you're going to get really upset because you know that you're not going to meet your obligation. You're not going to be there in time, and then you go to the trunk and you realize that your flat, your spare tire's flat.
And 3As can't come for 2 hours. So we can't take that into the square dance hall. We can't blame that onto the dancers. Or it's a beautiful day out, the weather's nice, and on the way to the dance, you hit a terrible snowstorm. That is just irritable to drive in. I mean, it's terrible. You can't see, but you get to the dance 5 minutes, you can't be rushing around. I mean, you can't take that into the square dance hall. It's not the dancer's fault because of the weather. That's all part of showmanship. But yet we don't think of things like that as showmanship. We're talking about appearances and so forth and how we look. That's a complete separate thing of attitude or feelings or how you're feeling that day. So now we get into the hall, we get set up, and just as we're getting ready to call, somebody comes in and slips on the wet floor. Your best friend just fell and broke her hip. That changes everything as far as showmanship, because you thought you had everybody up and about and ready to go, and all of a sudden, bam, this happens, and that just takes the air out of you.
And you've programmed your first tip where the singing call is going to be gone at last.
There you go.